you were just tuning in, we were talking about the update 3.3 highlights that talks about the new fitting room as well as a whole bunch of new champs. We have a new fusion champ, a bunch of new Legos, epics, and rare champs, and that's what we are going to be talking about. So Astralon is faction, sacred order, a magic Lego, another magic Lego chat. Hellbinder attacks enemy 2 times, has a 30% chance of placing decreased defense. Countess Licks will team up and join the attack if they're on the same team, and she will use her default. Will not team up with this attack if the skill is used when counterattacking or would team up to attack with another champ. Divine Imminence attacks an enemy, ignores defense, strengthen, and ally protection buffs. Oh wow, huh? Ignores ally protect. Revives a random ally with 40% HP and places a shield buff on them equal to 20% of their max HP for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. Also places a shield buff. Light of Sanctity removes all buffs on the target under Veil. Oh my. And then places a 25% weaken on enemies who have Veil or Perfect Veil. And a passive. Fills his champion's turn rate by 3% every time an ally is hit. Decreases incoming damage by 25% if the attacker's attack is lower than this champ. So this guy is going to be the fusion. Yeah, so removes all buffs from targets under Veil. And then plays a 25% weaken. It is very specialized. Yes, anti-Duchess, like Roxham also needs that. Anti-Necrit, yeah. Very interesting, very interesting. Very neat. I would love to know what you guys think. So right now we know that Astrolon is the new fusion champ, okay? After that, we do have more new champs that are coming. So the first one is Nagdar the Headhunter. Legendary Spirit Orc. Okay. Brutal Verdict. Attacks an enemy and heals this champ by 10% of max HP. Grants an extra turn if the attack kills an enemy. Gore Feast. Attacks all enemies. After attacking, this champion sacrifices HP equal to 50% of max HP. That places 2 continuous heal buffs for 2 turns. Is this one? Last Rites. Sacrifices HP equal to 50% of champ's max HP, then equalizes HP levels with the target enemy. HP levels of both this champ and the target will be brought down to the level of this one, of the one with the lowest HP. Like that's interesting. Drops it. And I was about to say, they have to add in, does not work against bosses. This champion cannot be killed by this skill. Headsman's Return revives this champion with 50% HP and 50% turn meter when killed if all other allies are alive. Does not work if there's multiple of the same champ, and the auras increases ally attack in all battles by 33%. By 33%. So this is one of the first new champs here. All right, next one is Simar Gem Curse. So it's a legendary dwarf. So really it did say we had a Lego dwarf coming, right? So here we are. And it does look like he's got some gems on his head too. Crystal Flesh attacks an enemy and heals by 15% of the damage inflicted if this champ has 50% HP or less. It fills the turn rate by 15% if he has more than 50%. Emerald Curse attacks one enemy and inflicts bonus damage equal to the difference in HP levels between this champion and the target. Inflicts bonus damage equal to the difference in numbers of buffs on this champ and the target. Yeah, it's a lot of books, guys. Boon Subversion attacks all enemies. 80% chance of stealing 2 random buffs before attacking. And places an extra hit on enemies that have any buffs left. And then Diamond Skin is a passive. Places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn at the start of every round. And blocks incoming damage and places the block buff on this champ for 1 turn whenever they receive a hit that would drop their health below 30%. And the aura is increases ally HP in all battles by 30%. So new dwarf, he looks interesting, right? He looks very, very interesting. And so far from what we're looking at is we have these champs that look like they're affecting HP. And oh boy, yeah, he likes books, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Still not the most we've seen, but 15. 15. Cardial is the next one. Cardial looks pretty neat. This one is a Void Support Sacred Order Lego and looks golden. This one looks kind of cool. We'll have to see what he does. Is Cow the Wicked. Attacks an enemy and heals all allies by 7.5% of max HP. Also places True Fear if the target is a champion from Demon Spawn Undead or Night Revenant. So that's an interesting mechanic. We haven't seen this yet, right? Places True Fear if the champion that is attacked is Demon Spawn, Undead, or Night Revenant. Now that is neat. I actually think that's kind of cool. Angel Song. So is he an angel? Ooh, I hope that they made him look like an angel or something. I do, because this one's called Angel Song. Heavenly Host. So just looking at this, I really hope that maybe they did do something angelic with him. Since I've been asking for some kind of pretty angelic faction, I'm hoping for that. Angel Song. Removes all debuffs from all allies, then places block buff and revive on death. The revive on death buff cannot be removed. Revive on death cannot be removed. Heavenly Host. Places a 30% increased crit rate and a 30% increased crit damage on all allies for 2 turns. Then teams up with all allies to attack a targeted enemy. Decreases the cooldown of the skill by 1 turn if an enemy is killed. Nice! Increased crit rate, increased crit damage, and all ally attack. This looks like a nice champ. I think so far he's my favorite. Cardio so far is my favorite. Fiend Warden is a passive. Allies receive 20% less damage from Demon Spawn, Undead, and Night Revenant. That is cool. Again, that goes nicely with the Cow the Wicked, right? Whenever an ally attacks, has a 15% chance to team up with them and join their attack. This champion will attack with the default skill, which is Cow the Wicked. Also joins Flametongue. Ooh, so we'll have to see who this one is. If they're on the same team. Can only join an ally's attack once per turn. Cardio will not team up on ally attacks when they counterattack or teamed up, and increase a speed in all battles by 19%. Guys, I think so far, Cardial's probably my favorite. So far from what we've seen and what we've read, I can't wait to see what his model looks like. I'm hoping that they do make him look angelic just based on what this is. And I like that mechanic, how it looks like he places a True Fear if they are Demon Spawn, Undead, and Night Revenant. And his passive is allies take 20% less damage from champs in those factions too. I think that is so neat. So far he's my favorite. Now we'll have to see who this Flametongue is. Now here's Countess Licks. She works with the Fusion champ, okay? She works with the Fusion champ, Astralon. Countess Licks is a legendary magic demon spawn. Festering Caress. Attacks one enemy 2 times, a 30% chance of placing a weaken. Mire of Misery. Attacks all enemies. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing decreased speed. Each hit also has a 75% chance of decreasing the turn meter. Time Dilation. Attacks all enemies. Has a 75% chance of placing block cooldown. Also decreases cooldowns of all ally skills except this champion by 1 turn. Unredeemed is going to be a passive here. Removes 1 random debuff from Astrolon and this champion at the start of each turn, and only available if Astrolon's on the team. And another passive is called Channel Woe. Fills the turn meter of this champ by 5% each time an ally receives a debuff. So it looks like she's kind of meant to pair up with Astrolon. All right, after Countess Licks, the next and last Lego we have here is Flametongue. She is a legendary force, a demon spawn. Towering Inferno. Attacks one enemy 3 times, and each hit has a 15% chance of increasing the duration of HP burn. I like that. Flame Eruption. Attacks all enemies. Has an 80% chance of placing a 25% weaken. Also has an 80% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense if there are at least 2 enemies under HP burn. Then instantly activates any HP burn Debuffs on each target and decreases duration of HP burn debuffs. Firestorm Rites. Places HP burn debuff on this champ for 3 turns, then attacks all enemies. Has a 75% chance of placing HP burn on all enemies for 3 turns, and grants an extra turn if an HP burn is placed on all enemies. So she burns herself, right? Am I reading this right? Is a Firestorm Rite is she puts HP burn on herself, and that's a 75% chance of placing HP burn on all enemies for 3 turns. It grants an extra turn if the debuff gets placed. If I'm reading that correctly, that's how this works. Metaphysics, and this is going to be a passive, is increases this champ's speed by 3 and damage inflicted by 3% for each ally and enemy under HP burn. If Cardiel is on the team, all allies will heal by 3% of max HP from HP burn instead of receiving damage. So that's actually kind of cool. So if you have Cecia teamed up with Cardiel, this one, the HP burn does the opposite effect. So instead of causing damage, it heals your team. So that's kind of cool. And the auras increases ally accuracy in all battles by 60. So that is really interesting. What it looks like here is they're giving us, were there 2 couples then? I'm trying to think. Is we have Cardiel, so we have Cecia and Cardiel. Then we also have Astralon and Countess Licks right here. So it looks like we have 2 couples. All right, first epic here on the list is going to be Runekeeper Daz Dork, who is an epic void dwarf. So here we go. Here is one of the void dwarfs we're getting. Already it kind of looks like a mage, so this should be interesting. Siphon Symbol. Attacks an enemy, has a 35% chance of placing a leech. Rune of Battle places a 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns and fills the turn meter of all allies. Purity Sigil, and the basic is removes all debuffs from allies and heals them by 25% of this champ's max HP. And the Ascended is removes all debuffs from all allies and heals all allies by 25% of champ's max HP. Also does a continuous heal, and his auras increases ally attack on all battles by 25%. Yeah, kind of like Deckard Cain, right? Right? Like Deckard Cain. Deacon Armstrong. Deacon Armstrong is going to be an epic spirit support for the Sacred Order. Mace of Contempt. Attacks enemy 2 times. Each has a 30% chance of placing a leech. Sweeping Retribution. Attacks all enemies. Has an 80% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Time Compression. The basic is fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% and decreases turn meter of enemies. And then the Ascended fills the turn meter of allies by 15%, decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 15%, and then grants an extra turn is going to be the Ascended. And the Aura is increases ally speed in all battles by 19%. So it seems like any of the Aura speeds that we've seen for decreased or increased speed have been 19% so far. So that's Deacon Armstrong. Quargan the Crowned. Looks like we're getting another lizard. Looks like we're getting another epic lizard, which is nice because what we did see in Doom Tower hard mode is the epic lizard secret room was a struggle because there's so few of them. So now we're getting another one, Quargan the Crowned. And he looks kind of cool. Looks like he's got a bit of a crown and, you know, what he's got going on here looks very interesting. Epic Spirits support for the lizards. Nature's Cycle. The basic attacks an enemy, but when it's Ascended, also has a 30% chance of increase in the duration of a random buff on a random ally by 1 turn. Overgrowth. Heals all allies by 50% of max HP and places a shield. And Attunement is places Perfect Veil and 50% increased attack buff for 2 turns on all allies whose attack is higher than defense, and places a 60% decrease buff and a block for all allies whose defense is higher than their attack. So I have to say, like, these conditional ones, I'm usually not a fan of these conditional ones. Like, who had a lot of conditions last time was Roxum. Roxum had a whole bunch of conditionals, and I'm usually not too much of a fan of that. But we'll see how this is, but it is nice that they're giving us another epic lizard, and this one also heals and does shields as well. Lordric Falconhearts is an epic spirits for the Sacred Order. So Lordric Falconheart for Sacred Order is Strike of Dismay. Attacks an enemy, has a 40% chance of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Hold Fast. Removes all debuffs from one ally, then places a 50% ally protect for 2 turns. Falcon's Wings. This places a shield buff on allies for 2 turns, equal to 20% of champion's max HP. And Aura is increases ally HP in Doom Tower. So he has a Doom Tower aura. You're thinking he's anti-Scarab in the Doom Tower, which is a nice assessment considering he has this. Fogbar the Bard. Oh, here's an epic dwarf. So here's another dwarf that we have. Cerelia did tell us a Lego dwarf and 2 epics. So far we talked about the Lego. Here's the epic. Spirits champ. Axe Solo. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Has a 50% chance of placing heal reduction. Robber's Tail. Attacks an enemy. Has an 80% chance of stealing 2 random buffs from the target. And an 80% chance of placing a stun. Awful Crooning. Attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing 30% decreased defense. And the Ascended is attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing decreased defense. So at least we have another nice dwarf being added in. And we have Godseeker Aniri. Godseeker Aniri is an epic void defense type champ for the Sacred Order. Blade of Blessings. Attacks an enemy and heals the ally with the lowest HP by 5% of max HP and cannot heal herself. Quest for Meaning. Attacks all enemies, heals all allies by 15% of max HP, decreases the duration of all buffs on allies by 1 turn, and increases duration of buffs on allies by 1 turn. Helen Huns! Yeah, she kind of looks like Helen Huns. Rise of Glory. Revive a dead ally with 50% HP and then fill their turn meter by 50% and reset cooldowns. Yeah, holy books, Batman. Now, Guardian Angel is her passive. Increases the amount of healing allies receive by 10%. But the active is, if an ally is about to get killed by a fatal hit, preempts that hit and instantly places a Revive on Death buff on them for 1 turn before the damage is taken. Now, that's neat. So it pretty much, she prevents them from dying the first time around. So that's kind of cool. I like that. All right, Prondar. It's an epic void ogre and holy books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Count it with me, chat. 20 books. Flaming Pig Sticker. Now, what about the champ we have that's named Pig Sticker? She might not like this. Attacks an enemy, has a 30% chance of placing decreased speed. Has 30% chance of placing a stun when counterattacking. Hulking Tantrum. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a provoke. And places a 60% increased defense buff. Giant's Strength. Place a 25% strengthen and 50% continuous heal on allies. Master of Taunts. Receives 20% less damage from enemies under provoke. Has a 25% chance of counterattacking whenever an enemy under provoke attacks either this champ or an ally. And the aura is ally defense and Doom Tower by 30%. So we have another Doom Tower type champ. And yeah, that's a lot of books, chat. Epic Spirit, a demon spawn. Tarshan. Diabolical Hook. Attacks an enemy and a 25% chance of placing a provoke. Soul Shrivel. Attacks all enemies. Has a 75% chance of placing a weaken. Demonic Possession. Places a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. And fills the turn meter of allies by 20%. And the passive is back for more. Places a 25% strengthen buff on this champ for 2 turns whenever they drop below 50%. Next, it looks like we have Pestilence, Epic Spirits, Night Revenant. Blood Call. Attacks 2 times at random and has a 30% chance of placing a leech for 2 turns. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing HP burn for 2 turns. Heals all allies by 50% of max HP if the HP burn debuff is placed, and fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% if the HP burn is not placed. And this is gonna be for Flames Within. Battle Weirdling places a 50% increased accuracy and 30% increased crit damage on all allies. In the auras, increases ally accuracy in Doom Tower by 50. Next champ is Clawed Beast Feeder. That's going to be an epic magic Ogren. He looks like a Cyclops. He has 1 eye, so they made this one look like a Cyclops. New Stabby Hand has a 30% chance of placing a 30% decreased crit rates. Get Behind Me places a shield buff on all allies equal to 20% of champion's max HP. Beast Escape places a 30% increase speed buff and 50% increase accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns. And Delicious Giblets! Guys, these names sometimes are hilarious. Delicious Giblets. Now that sounds like something I would call Bobble. I would call Bobble a delicious giblet, and he probably would respond to that. Bobble's my parrot, by the way. In case chat's like, what's Bobble? Because I'm pretty sure I've called him chicken nuggets, I've called him chicken legs, I've called him drumstick. I don't know, he responds to all of it. So I think if I called him a delicious giblet, most likely he would respond to that. Heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of max HP at the start of this champion's turn. So it looks like we're going to be getting another Ogren. And this one has shields. And heals a little bit, right? Heals the ally with the lowest HP. So that's nice. Another nice support. Even though this is HP type champ, but a nice kind of shield health support for that. Bolt Smith. Rare Dwarf. And he has another bucket on his head. Quarrel Cripple. Attacks enemy 2 times. Each it has a 50% chance of placing decreased speed. Trained Eye places a 15% increased crit rate and crit damage on this champ for 2 turns and then grants an extra turn. Piercer Munitions. Attacks an enemy, ignores 30% of target's defense, and the auras increases ally attack and faction war crips by 20%. So we do have another dwarf. It looks decent as well. And Scrapper is a rare void barbarian. Arena Arts. Attacks an enemy, places a shield buff on this champ for 2 turns, equal to 5% of the damage inflicted if this attack is a crit. Crowd Pleaser. Attacks one enemy, destroys the target's max HP by 30% of the damage dealt, and places a shield buff for 2 turns, equal to 30% of champ's max HP. Show Off. Increases damage inflicted by the champion equal to the percent of max HP destroyed on the target, and the aura increases ally attack in Doom Tower by 25%. So he makes me think for Doom Tower, but also with this makes me think maybe they'll make him look like, you guys remember Gladiator? Maybe they'll kind of make him look a bit Gladiator-like, possibly. Abyssal. We have a rare demon spawn, rare spirit demon spawn. Void Gaze. Attacks all enemies. Has a 15% chance of placing a block buff debuff for 2 turns. Abyssal Renew. Heals all allies by 15% of their max HP. Wards of Madness. Places a 30% increase defense buff and 25% increase attack buff on allies for 2 turns. Aura. Increases ally speed and faction war crips by 16%. Flailer. Rare magic defense for a dwarf. Tangle Bash. As attacks one enemy, has a 25% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. Noble Stand. Places a 30% increased defense buff on this champ and the ally with the lowest HP for 2 turns and fills the turn meter by 25%. Fury Swipe. Attacks an enemy and 75% chance of placing a provoke, and the auras increases ally defense and faction war crips by 17%. So that is all of the new champs. It's all of the new champs. I would love to know, what do you guys think? Do you love the champs? Do you... I mean, are you surprised with how many new Legos we're getting? And what do you think of the fusion champ, which is all the way back up here? So our fusion champ is going to be this guy, Astralon. I would love to know your feedback. I would love to know what you guys think.